Well, it's the news that we've been waiting for, or is it? It's important to be clear and show clarity in these types of stories before we just raise that level of excitement a little bit more beyond what we have done so already. It's Sesko in today's Arsenal Transfer Show. Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys and girls for another episode of what is our Arsenal Transfer Show, joining you every single morning at 8 a.m. UK time. Thank you so much as always for joining me and making this a part of your morning routines. It is greatly appreciated. I hope you're doing good. I hope you're doing well. I hope your week has been very strong, and I hope indeed your weekend's going to be even better. And I hope the news surrounding Arsenal can get even better, which would be a hell of an achievement, considering it's been quite the week for Arsenal transfer news. It's been a good week to return to action, a good week to be chatting with you all again, and of course, a good week to do some business. But I think next week, as July kicks off, is set to be potentially even better, as we know that July is going to be a very key point of the transfer window for many clubs, Arsenal included, because it is a period of time where we expect deals to get done. Kepa, Zubimendi, both expected to be announced next week. Cristhian could also be announced as an Arsenal player in the next fortnight or so too, after their successful discussions with Brentford over a potential deal, and the player, of course, also. But it is those bigger, higher profile signings that we are all really the ones waiting to find out what's going to happen. We can hope that Benjamin Sesko, Victor Gyökeres, Rodrigo, Eze, Cristhian Mosquera, these names that have been talked about with Arsenal for both short and long term. Well, we got to hope that one of them, two of them, maybe three of them gets done between now and the start of pre-season. But it's going to be a big ask for Arsenal, but we're going to be covering all of that and talking about all the latest updates regarding those players and more in today's show. If you haven't yet dropped a like on the video, please make sure you do. We're trying to hit 1K every single day on the show, and we've managed to do that very successfully so far. Thank you for all of your kind support on the channel. And of course, we recorded 2 episodes yesterday. I'll talk more a little bit about how indeed you can go and catch up on the second episode of yesterday's show, which detailed specifically one of our players in our first tactical breakdown of the summer. You've got 2 uploads today as well. I'll be joined by a fantastic guest who will be showcasing his thoughts on the Arsenal situation, both for now and in the future, but I'll talk more about that in part 2. Right, good morning to those joining us live in the chat box. Hope you're doing good. Hope you're doing well. We've got Matt says hello, who's now Matt G says hello, apparently, in the chat. I noticed these things. Peter Capelli, we've got Stevie, we've got Mr. Noige, we've got whoever, we've got Runs of Cows, we've got Zoom, we've got John, we've got Simple Unity, we've got Mohammed. Oh, it's showing the ats. I see. StreamYard's changed. It's showing your ats now. It's not showing your actual name. That's weird. I don't know if I like that. Loga, Dave, Matthew, PM1. We've got Nicholas. We've got Loga. I think I've already said some of these, but that's strange. I don't know if I like that or not, StreamYard. Showing people's ats instead of their YouTube names. That's a new one on me, but it's the one that we're going with, apparently. That's why it confused me so much when it was like, Matt says hello. That's Matt G. Why is it saying something different? So, yeah, I don't know. But StreamYard's now apparently showing your ats instead of your actual YouTube names. I don't know. I don't make the rules. I don't control how this works. Only StreamYard does. Right, let's not waste any more time, shall we? Let's jump into the chat box and go rather into the slideshow. We'll go to the chat box in part 2. Oh, you guys are saying it's showing the same on your side. Oh, I see. Yes, it's showing your ats in the chat box as well, not just your names. Strange. YouTube changing it up, I guess, this morning out of nowhere. But yeah, let's jump into today's stories, shall we? We begin by looking at a post made by Riccardo Calafiori, the Italian international, putting on his Instagram story an update of the players that have joined him and some of the other Arsenal players, of course, in Marbella in Spain. It's something that Arsenal, of course, have been doing for a little while. They did it last year with Mikel Arteta. You can see Sam Wilson there as well, one of the Arsenal coaching staff, one of the fitness and conditioning staff members, I believe. And you've got Thomas Partey, William Saliba, Gabriel also pictured there. We think that Julian Timber is also in the building, at least. I don't know how many others are there. We know that Martin Odegaard, of course, who celebrated the union of his relationship, if you will. I did believe he got married before. I think that's maybe kind of a big celebration in Norway, and Kai Havertz and Bukayo Saka were both in attendance for that. But some of the team are there. It was kind of an informal. It wasn't compulsory. But with Partey, of course, his contract coming to an end at the end of this month. No breakthrough in contract talks. Arsenal expects to replace him with Cristhian, of course, as well. He is still under contract. So until the end of this month, he is an Arsenal player. So that's why he's there. That's why he's with the team. That's why he's keeping up his fitness while he's with the side. But the expectation is he will leave. I know that his presence and some of the pictures being uploaded by some of the Arsenal team members made people think that he will stay. That isn't what is expected to happen unless there is a massive U-turn between now and the end of June. So until then, he is still expected to go. Moving into transfer news, though, and Valencia have rejected Arsenal's opening offer for Cristhian Mosquera. And it's not exactly surprising that this is the case. Of course, Arsenal know that there are... they know that there is a scenario whereby Arsenal have the ability to use the fact he has 1 year left on his contract as something of a negotiating tool, and they've lowballed them. You'll be unsurprised to know Arsenal have got him very low at their opening offer, and it is now thought that maybe a deal be done closer to around 20 to 25 million euros, so around 20 million pounds or 18 to 20 million pounds. But Valencia would hope to keep Mosquera still. He is an important player for them, and they don't want to lose him, especially not for a ridiculously low fee. But with that 1 year remaining on his contract, it does obviously create a scenario whereby they haven't got the strongest of positions in those talks. So yeah, it's I think around £16 million bid was rejected, and now indeed Arsenal will be going back in with a new offer to try and convince Valencia to sell, and convince, of course, Mosquera, who they can give a significant wage bump to join them during this summer window. So talks ongoing with Arsenal and Valencia for Mosquera. Now, kind of the key, the bigger transfers, if you like, between Arsenal is to come. I should let you know that you can go and watch our tactical breakdown on Cristhian Mosquera. I was joined by La Liga weekly host and Sky Sports Spanish football commentator John Driscoll to talk all about Mosquera, find out a little bit more about him for our first tactical breakdown of the season. So if you've not yet gone and watched that tactical breakdown with lots of info and analysis and education surrounding who Cristhian Mosquera is, if you want to get familiar with exactly what type of player Arsenal look to be bringing into the club, that is the show to watch. So go and give that a watch, and you can find out all about him. We've been doing tactical breakdown shows on the channel for many years. In fact, it's probably the show which sent the channel into more of the mainstream, if you like. So I've got a lot of fond, nostalgic memories of tactical breakdown shows before even the 8 a.m. show came along. So if you haven't given it a watch, please make sure you do. But yes, that's Cristhian Mosquera and the tactical breakdown of him. The two big stories today surround both Benjamin Sesko and Eze. Just before we go on to Sesko, I should mention the Eze latest. A lot of stories obviously following on from what we talked about yesterday. Arsenal linked with the Crystal Palace player. They're said to have, no issues when it comes to personal terms or the desire of Eze to join Arsenal. There were also reports that Tottenham had pulled out of the race for Eze yesterday as well, it seems, with Arsenal considered to be more of a viable destination for Eze. Is it a case of Eze or Rodrigo? Is it a case of Eze and Rodrigo? Who knows? We know that Arsenal are keen on adding a number of forwards, potentially as many as 3 during this window. So it could be that Eze forms one of those options, despite even having an interest in Rodrigo as well. But that is what I think that will trundle on towards the latter end of the window, potentially. It might be a harder deal to do. But let's get on to Sesko, who, of course, according to Bild in Germany, of course, one of the main papers out there in Germany, the claim is that what people have interpreted from this story is that Sesko has supposedly, or rather RB Leipzig, have lowered their asking price. That's what I'm seeing plastered over my social media feed this morning and yesterday evening in response to this article. in build, which is not how I've interpreted it since reading it. The article written by Yvonne Gabriel, of course, who is a Leipzig-based reporter, she's spoken about the potential transfer of Leipzig, and this is what she writes. This is translated, of course, from German. Sesko wants to leave Leipzig, and the club is also open to a sale sooner rather than later, also to be able to operate on a larger scale in the market and, of course, replace Sesko. Leipzig are dreaming of a transfer fee between 80 to 100 million euros for the striker, who has a contract until 2029. However, according to Bild, a more realistic price is 70 million euros for the base fee and then bonuses on top of that. So despite this idea that, or the interpretation of this story I see going around social media, that Leipzig have lowered their price tag, supposedly, I interpret this more so as Bild suggesting what, in the end, Leipzig would most likely see a deal agreed at, which is 70 million euros plus bonuses. So to add kind of more English-specific context to that, a deal of 70 million euros would cost Arsenal 59.8 million pounds, so just under 60 million pounds, plus then, of course, bonuses. So it could be a deal that's done of around 60 plus 5 or 60 plus 10 million pounds to get a deal for Benjamin Sesko agreed with the German side. But this is just a suggestion. This is, at the moment, just an opinion of Yvonne Gabriel of Sport Bild in Germany. So it's worth pointing out that those of you that are seeing maybe posts on social media saying, oh, Leipzig have lowered their price tag, and hence why there is a question mark in today's thumbnail of the video, because we're asking that question as to whether or not that is indeed the case. I would ask you to be a little bit cautious in interpreting this story from Sport Bild in Germany as more of an opinion-based report than a claim that comes with information in regards to kind of what it is right now. It could be, of course, that with Arsenal holding out for a better deal, where they don't really want to pay 80 to 100 million euros for Sesko, they do want to get a better deal on that front as well with the Slovenian international, but they may have to compromise in the end. Of course, the deals that they've done early in this window with Kepa and Norgard and Zubi means that they have opened themselves up to be able to spend more this window. The deal for Mosquera does not look to be too expensive either, which should give them more room, of course, to maneuver for 2, maybe 3 forwards between now and the end of the window. But the key thing, I think, for Arsenal right now is getting that centre forward in before the pre-season tour of Asia, which, of course, the team will be flying away in just around 3 weeks' time. In fact, I think it was 3 weeks yesterday, on the 19th of July. So we need to try and get this deal, or a deal, of course, for a centre-forward, be that Sesko or Gyökeres, done before they fly away to Asia for those 3 pre-season games against Milan, Newcastle and Tottenham. But plenty more is still to come from Arsenal, we expect, in this window. And hopefully that centre forward is one that will be happening sooner rather than later. Right, let's go to part 2. Some of your questions and more right after this. That was weird. I pressed the button and nothing happened. That was so strange. Oh, StreamYard must be thinking it's Saturday. If StreamYard needs to wake up on a Saturday for some reason. That was weird. Did you hear the gulp? I said, Rudak says, lol, the gulp. So I pressed the button. I assume it's going to work. I go take a drink of water, expecting it to be fine, and nothing happens. How strange. I was taking that sip, not even, and then I look back like, what's happening? So yeah, sorry about that. Not my fault. StreamYard not doing what I needed to do, apparently. Very odd. I'm sure that was funny. Anyway, let's jump into the chat. This morning, this is really strange. I don't know if the connection's a little bit strange this morning. This is odd. I was thinking about moving the extra node I've got this morning for the Wi-Fi into this room. Maybe I need to do that in a little bit. But yeah, that's how strange is that? Apologies if the connection's freezing a bit. We're going to try and get that sorted out for tomorrow morning, so it's sorted. So we've got more of a better connection. But it may mean we condense down part 2 today, just to overcome these issues. Yeah, apologies for that. Let's jump into the chat and answer some of your questions, shall we? Matt says, what do you think the future holds for Gabby Jesus? He's injured, so he can't be sold in the summer or probably January. So do you think he'll just be a squad player for the rest of the season? I think, Matt, and it's a good question to ask, and thank you for your question. I think, Matt, that what most likely is that he will be kept, until January at the very earliest. I think it's expected that we'll be keeping him at the club. But what I expect more so is that he will probably stay until the end. I think it'd be a real surprise if he left in January. I think that it'd be a real surprise. I don't think clubs would be too willing to take too much of a risk on somebody that's just come back from a major knee injury. I think the most likely the scenario that we find ourselves in is that Jesus is recovered and then just joins the team until the end of 2026. So he may then leave in that summer window. I think it would really be a surprise if Jesus was to leave just when he comes back from that knee injury. But with it being a World Cup year, maybe it's slightly different. Tobba says, do you know if and when Arsenal have the training camp in La Manga? Traveling there myself in mid-July. To my knowledge, there was meant to be a warm weather training camp in that first week that they return. I don't know specifically when that is, though. Still Real says, Tom, do you worry about the technical level of our midfield 3, the ability to break down low blocks? No, I think Arsenal have managed that pretty successfully. Martin Odegaard, of course, we hope to be back into some of his best form next season. Declan Rice has been excellent in driving into the box and giving Arsenal a bit of a line-breaking midfield option. And Zubimendi, of course, gives Arsenal a lot more progressive and incisive passing than what Partey did. So I think I'm very happy with the options that we've got in midfield for next season. David says, do you think outgoings are required for squad members, and who do you think will leave? I think the likes of Fabio Vieira, Reece Nelson, Zinchenko are the 3 main ones that we're looking at. There could be a surprise exit. It could be that we see, Martinelli, Trossard, Kivior. These are other names maybe that are surprise exits during this window. But the 3 that I mentioned before them are most certainly expected to find new clubs in 2025. Brian says, how many players do we need to sign this window? I think at least 6. It used to be 5 until Partey, of course, decided that he wasn't going to sign a new deal. Or rather, Arsenal decided that they weren't going to match the demands financially of what Partey was asking for. So 5 did become 6. So, yes, 6. It could be 7, though. But at least 6 is the expectation of this window. Lloyd says, why are Leipzig making it so hard to let go of Sesko when they agreed last year with him to let him go, and now they want 80 to 100 million? Players are learning fast that some clubs never keep their word. In fairness, I don't think there was like an agreement of a lower price tag with Sesko. The argument is there was with Gyökeres and Sporting. That's what supposedly the whole 60 plus 10 million euro agreement was, that's not been supposedly respected by the club's new president this summer. But that's all, we don't know the reality of that. We don't know how true that is. That's just rumours. But when it comes to Leipzig, it was that there was a gentleman's agreement that he would be sold if a club that were willing to pay the asking price came in for him. There wasn't an agreement for Sesko on a specific price tag. So there maybe is a little bit of a misconception around Sesko over this summer's potential exit. Fabulous Baker Boy says, why are we always comparing players we want against each other rather than can we get both? We need to bolster, not just replace. Is that expectation too high? If you're talking about the centre forward, I've discussed this obviously many times before. The likelihood of Arsenal landing 2 centre forwards is very, very slim. They've already got Kai Havertz. They've got Jesus until at least the end of this upcoming season and returning halfway through. You've got Mikel Merino. You've got Leandro Trossard, all players that can play at centre forward. If they were to sign Rodrigo, he also is another player that has also played through the middle for his respective club at times as well. The idea that Gyökeres would look at Sesko arriving at Arsenal and go, yeah, I'm still open to joining Arsenal, I think is unlikely, and vice versa. with Sesko, of course, if Gyökeres was to be signed. So I just don't think that there's a likelihood that both players are feasible. Tyler says, I believe with 2 years in the Champions League, the buys we've made so far being cheap, I believe that we could go big, especially if Eze's release clause is as is £67.5 million is my understanding, but it can, of course, be paid in favourable terms. So yeah, I really hope that we do sign Eze. I think, you know that I've been talking about him for a long time on the channel. Harish says, Tom, players we've been linked with, Rodrigo, Eze, Rodgers are inside forwards, not out-and-out touchline wingers. I mean, Rodrigo certainly is a winger. Eze and Rodgers, I agree with you. They're more inside kind of, they'd be wide playmakers, if you like, if they were to play in wide areas. But Rodrigo is definitely a winger as opposed to the other two. Tyler says, Duran is on the market, it seems, with Fabrizio reporting him potentially moving to Fenerbahce. I would personally love to see him at Arsenal. What's your take? I think he's not as high a profile as the Seskos and Gyökeres personally. He had a very good half season, if you like, half to one season with Aston Villa. He then made a decision to go to Saudi Arabia and earn as much as he could, really. Scored 8 goals in 13 league games for Al Nassr, playing, of course, alongside Cristiano Ronaldo. 12 goals in 18 across all competitions, which is a good return, but it's impossible to have any kind of level of appreciation for what that really is, playing in Saudi Arabia. So I know people like him, still a young player. It seems odd that he would then make a switch back. He probably would cost a lot of money when it comes to his wages now as well. It's a difficult deal. Turkish clubs can actually pay, pretty darn good wages. Hence why Partey is being linked with a move to Turkey as well. I don't see Duran being a viable option really for Arsenal during this window. Could be proven wrong. Sharif says, hi, Tom. It seems Andrea Berta, negotiates with several targets and agents and agrees terms with players in the same position and then decides who he wants, like Sesko and Gyökeres. Do you agree with that strategy? Absolutely, yeah. I think it's been a breath of fresh air the way that Andrea Berta has come in and is looking to negotiate deals for Arsenal. Because if you are in a position where you're approaching it more in a linear way, where you're going one after the other, after the other, after the other, it makes it much more difficult for you to do those deals if you need to pivot. If your priority target is not possible and you have to start from square one on another target, it can take much longer to do those deals. This way, you can pivot more effectively. It also showcases to the team that you're negotiating with that the player that you want is not your only option. So it strengthens your negotiating position. It's just a very holistically impressive way of approaching transfer deals. So I'm very glad that Andrea Berta is indeed looking at this one. Fuad says, Tom, are you not a bit worried with the lack of quality behind Odegaard if he was to get injured again? I know we have Waneri, but he's still only 18 and learning, and we have to bolster that position. Yeah, and that's why I'm very keen on Eze. That's why I'm keen on that deal potentially being something that Arsenal look to do during this window. But it is worth pointing out that, and I have mentioned this before, when I asked Arteta myself about this position, about the lack of depth behind Odegaard, he, without being prompted, did name check Max Dowman for next season. So he is also someone to think about going into next season as well. David says, does outgoings affect the score of the transfer window? I don't think so, like it did last window. Like the summer of 2024, there was an emphasis on sales. Smith Rowe and Nketiah, Ramsdale, bringing in Arsenal close to £100 million with add-ons included. Those deals absolutely had an impact on how I viewed that window in the initial kind of reaction to it, especially because two of those sales happened on deadline day. But this summer is not about that at all. Yes, if we get good fees for Zinni, for Fabio Vieira, for Nelson, it will look good. It will look very good. But for me, everything is about the signings this summer. It's about who's coming in. It's not about who's going out. Last summer, it was about both. And we needed to improve our sales reputation, absolutely. But this summer, my rating of how I view it is going to be pretty much solely on, who we sign. And we've talked about what would be a 9 or a 10 window. We've kind of laid that out. And we're heading towards that, which is obviously really, really positive as well. Thanks, Barry. I appreciate that you like the new background. I hope it's coming across on your feed as well as we can. Hopefully the internet connection, of course, in this new room is going to improve in the coming weeks. So it'll look even crisper by, of course, the end. Gunnar Mac says, which is Maximius, of course. Hi, Tom. With Villa and Lyon currently financially in a bit of trouble, apparently, which players would you pick from those teams? Is Aston Villa in financial trouble? I mean, financial fair play, of course, has always been a little bit of a problem with them, even though they've got very rich owners. This is a interesting story by the Eye. Of course, if you're unaware of the Eye newspaper here in the UK, but they have an article at the moment suggesting that Aston Villa and Chelsea are set to be fined by UEFA next week for breaching financial regulations. The UEFA's club financial control body, CFCB, has been probing alleged overspending by the two Premier League clubs ahead of their participation in Europe next season. And this is what I've been talking about with you all for a little while now. PSR is not the main kind of restriction that we are talking about these days. It's not the main one. UEFA financial fair play is the more stringent, the more restrictive financial body that Arsenal and other clubs that play in European competition absolutely have to be, apply, abide by. That's the word I'm looking for. And so therefore, Chelsea and Villa could be in a little bit of trouble. So yeah, let's wait and see what happens. Akupa Faye says, I haven't been here in a while. Well, thank you for coming back. Really appreciate seeing you in the chat box. Summon Dance. I really don't like this whole your Twitter @ being your names. I'd much rather it was just your names. That's not in my control. I don't know why YouTube has changed this. Do you think Saliba will extend his contract with us? If not, we should consider him being sold this window to get the best value. At the moment, I'm more optimistic than pessimistic about Saliba's future. So right now, feeling good about Saliba's situation. So that for me is a positive thing. Shuri says, hi, Tom. Do you think with Mosquera coming in, it puts an end to us possibly signing Ural Hato? I think so. I'd be very surprised if Arsenal signed 2 defenders, but it is Mikel Arteta's Arsenal, so anything's possible. Tizer says, Arteta said he wanted to increase the squad depth and quality and get forward. So far, we've only replaced what we've lost: Neto, Partey, Jorginho, and Tommy. I mean, Tommy's not lost. He's just not here, but he is injured. But yes, you're right. He has only replaced what he's lost, and that's why we need to sign 2 forward players at least in this window coming up, or this window that we are in right now, of course. So yeah, we do need 2 more. At least 2 more to add to the team during this window. If a Martinelli or a Trossard was to leave, we'd absolutely need at least 3 as well. Claire says, do you think all European countries should just adopt UEFA's financial fair play? It seems pointless having PSR if it means nothing to teams playing in Europe. I guess the argument is for those teams that are not playing in Europe that you've also got to abide by these specific rules in the Premier League at least. But I see where you're coming from. But when you are in UEFA competition, especially on a regular occasion, you do need to abide by those laws, which I'm going to be curious to see how Nottingham Forest get on. Obviously, they've already faced PSR pressure. Now being in UEFA competition, I'm curious to see how close they are to abiding by those UEFA rules, of course, as well. Maya Neely says, nice to see you on TalkSport yesterday. Thanks, mate. Yeah, it was nice to be on there yesterday, having a chat with... it's nice to actually... The first time I've spoken to Marcus Speller in particular, I was a big listener of the Football Ramble podcast as I was kind of making my way through the journalistic sphere. So, yeah, it was that was a moment. That was a nice moment. But yeah, it was good to talk about Arsenal. Good to kind of clear things up, put the voice of reason, if you like, out there into that space. It's always a good thing to do. So, yeah, it was good to see that. And thank you for listening. Austin says, hi, Tom. I was passing by and I saw your live show background saying Leipzig lowered the price for Sesko. Is it true that Mosquera... Of course, it's worth pointing out that we've got a question mark in that thumbnail because we're asking the question of whether Leipzig have lowered the price tag for Sesko based upon this report by Bild that a lot of people are interpreting as Leipzig lowering the price. Well, as we've discussed, which you can go back and rewind to part 1. Things are not as they seem. But if you rewind back to the start of the show and go into part 1, you go to our slide on Sesko, we explain all of that there. Bernard says, if we buy Eze or Rodrigo, which striker would you prefer? Still Sesko. It doesn't matter who I think we sign. I'm just Sesko for me is the is the one that I would go for. But we've discussed it at length. The amount of kind of detail we've got into on Sesko and Gyökeres and why I prefer Sesko over Gyökeres. I like Gyökeres as well. It's not a case of pancakes and waffles. If you like one, it means you must hate the other. It's not about that. It's obviously that Arsenal, I hope, go and sign Sesko over Gyökeres. But if it is Gyökeres, I'm still more than happy to see him come into the club this season. Right, we are going to close the shop there. Thank you so much for listening. Apologies for the slight issue with the connectivity today. As I said, I'm going to get this plugged in Ethernet style into one of the nodes today. Hopefully that solves it. But if you could drop a like on the video before you leave, we do try to hit 1,000 likes on the show every single day, or as far as we can. So if you could drop a like before you go, that really would help us out. And I'm very much looking forward to speaking with you a little bit later on today. You'll hear from one of our fantastic friends of the show, and certainly someone that those of you maybe of my generation are more familiar with for his content around FIFA. But I look forward to speaking with you a little bit later on today, of course, and that is a pre-recorded episode, I should point out. But then, of course, speaking with you proper in tomorrow morning's 8 a.m. episode. Have a fantastic day, people. Stay safe, stay well, stay happy and respectful. And as always, up the Arsenal. Let's see if this actually works when I press the button.